What will happen if Kamala Harris wins and becomes the first female of color as president in the United States? I know, and I know because I've done research, I've looked at her record, and I've talked to the people around her. So, you want to know the answers? Good. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to the Chris Cuomo Project. We did what happens if Trump wins. We did what happened if Biden wins. That's not going to happen. Although I will tell you, his decision to not be a one-term president is going to haunt him. He could have gone out on top as a lion who saved this country from a period of chaos. That will be a mixed legacy now. But Biden has moved to the side willingly, and Kamala Harris is now the one to focus on. There are three different ways to look at the impact of Kamala Harris, okay? And then there's a fourth X factor. The X factor is the unknown. Who knows? It's about what happens once she's president and how she responds to it. So, X factor of we don't know what's going to happen and how she'll respond to it. But there are three categories that we do know. What she is about and what she wants with the people around her. What Congress will want and be about if she wins. And there's a huge assumption in that I will explain to you. And then the us, the United States, us as people, and how we react to it and what the presidency likely means for us. All right, let's break them down one at a time, okay? The thickest of these is her, Kamala Harris. Relevance. Well, her greatest relevance if she wins is that she's the first female president. And I do believe this is long overdue. Have you seen the clip of President Gerald Ford explaining to a kid how a woman would wind up becoming president? I thought it was fake. What a piece of genius Gerald Ford had. He said to somebody, we're going to have a female president, of course, but it'll happen in the unlikely way that a man as president will pick a female vice president. He'll then die. He said this to a kid, by the way. And then she'll become president and then forget it. Men will have a hard time even getting nominated again. He shouldn't have said the last part. It was funny. Everybody laughed in the room. But we've become very sensitive in our politics to reaction formation. And Harris represents that in a couple of levels. In scaring men that they'll have fewer opportunities, you can go, oh, little violin. It's still relevant. And I told people this about the reaction formation of Obama and how you got Trump. You don't get Trump without Obama, okay? Because there was reaction. White fright is a real thing. Oh, poor white people. Listen, you may not care. You may not sympathize. You may not empathize. You may not realize, but it is still true. And there are a lot of white people who believe that society is set up when the left has its way to reduce their footprint in society. Oh, that's crazy. Listen, I'm not saying there aren't counter arguments. I could make them all day. I'm telling you that the condition exists and it's a big part of Trumpism. Now, first female black president, first female black and Indian president. Big deal. Big deal in the positive and in the negative. Positive, why? It's the right kind of history you want to make. Diversity is America's secret sauce. Our leadership should reflect our society. Way past time we had a female leader. And I'm really interested in seeing how it's different. Oh, she's not the right woman. Or listen, you win, you're the right person, okay? I am very pragmatic about these things. If you win, you're in. And you're right person, wrong person. You won. If you win, you win. That kind of history is a boost to us. It was when Obama won also. It makes you feel good about yourself, that we are more than our worst tendencies, that we are more than the ugliest impression of us, by us, okay, which is that we're a bunch of racists. And it would be good if you show that diversity is strength. And I think that's a good thing. Now, will there be reaction formation? I believe yes. I believe there are people who will say this is all DEI run wild. And DEI wasn't a thing the same way. It wasn't weaponized when Obama won. But you don't get Trump without Obama. And white people were definitely susceptible to being told that somehow this was part of a bad thing that was going to happen. And yet at the same time, so many people on the left were disappointed by Obama not taking on race enough, not doing enough with it. You see, so you're never going to make everybody happy. That's the problem with a bipolar. That's what it is. It is bipolar. It's bipartisan, but it's really bipolar. That's really what it is. That was a mistake, but I'm glad I said it. That's the problem, is that our politics is bipolar more than it is bipartisan. And you saw that with Obama. You will likely see it again with Harris. What will be the reaction to her being the first woman? Not so much. Men are too smart to say something that stupid out loud. You are not going to hear guys saying, well, this is what you get when you have a woman. You won't even see old members of Congress making woman jokes unless they are empowering ones about like how, oh, you know, whatever stupid shit you can think of that they might say about a woman. You won't hear it. Why? Too big a price these days. It's not a joke anymore. We've lost our sense of humor about ourselves. And part of the downside of that is that a lot of times we express our intentions and we communicate with each other through making fun about things that are sensitivities. We don't do that well anymore. Not right now. So you're not going to see it that way, but you will see reaction formation other ways. So that's one big thing that will happen if Harris wins. Support for the Chris Cuomo Project comes from 120 Life. It's a great tasting blend of superfruit juices. We're using it at home. High blood pressure is no joke. Here's why. It's not that high blood pressure itself is what's going to do you dirty, but it is proof as a risk factor for all mortality type illness. It is the #1 risk factor. 50% of us have a blood pressure issue. 50% of us. How come I've never heard that? Because we just accept it these days. And I've got it in my own family. And we're using 120 Life. And yes, it's only part of a protocol. We're trying to do all the right things, but the numbers are moving in the right direction. So for me, 120 Life is part of the solution, because managing high blood pressure matters. 120 Life gives you visible, measurable changes in blood pressure. It's a blend of great tasting superfruit juices that can help lower blood pressure. You can try it yourself risk-free. 2-week trial pack. You go to 120life.com and use the code Chris. You get 15% off and you get free shipping. They're so sure that they will give you a money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied. So you got nothing to lose, except high blood pressure numbers. Go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com. Use the code Chris, 15% off. Support for the Chris Cuomo Project comes from GetMaineLobster.com. And I got to tell you, we're coming into the holidays. Now, of course, if you're an extension of the mishpucha, lobster is treif. But for the rest of us, it's good eating at holiday time. Get Maine Lobster, the #1 lobster delivery service in America, as recognized by Good Housekeeping and the woman who makes my house keeping good, my wife. And when you're talking lobster, let's be honest, Maine, baby. It's Maine. I'm a New Yorker through and through. I'm not messing with them when it comes to lobster, okay? When you go to GetMaineLobster.com, you can get it with a deal. With a deal. Promo code Cuomo, 15% off all orders store-wide. 15% off. Why wait? Treat yourself. Let the people you love know that they are loved. Make memories. GetMaineLobster.com. Visit the site and use the promo code Cuomo and you get 15% off at checkout store-wide. GetMaineLobster.com. GetMaineLobster.com. That will bring you closer together. Another big thing that will happen is there will almost certainly be less chaos in the exchange between media and government. She is not a disruptor candidate. She is part of the incumbency. She is part of the establishment. She will be seen that way. She is not Trump. You can argue that Trump isn't Trump, that he's not really a disruptor. He's just a disruptor with his mouth, not with his policies. But be that as it may, she is not an agent of chaos. So there will not be as many open fights with media and her saying stupid shit about us and us then chasing after her for saying stupid shit. That won't be as much of a dynamic. Now, let's talk about the big action items. The economy. You know, why is it the case, and this is the case, I don't care if you believe it or not, it's a Google away. The economy has done better measured by major metrics and the stock market, assuming you don't want to play the Wall Street versus Main Street game, under Democratic presidents. Why? Well, putting aside the braggadocious nature of this proposition and the premise, the most likely reason is that Democrats tend to put more money into the economy. They do more government spending. Now, that wasn't true under Trump, which is one of the reasons he had a robust economy, because he spent like crazy and gave a tax cut, which is anathema, which is the opposite of conservative dogma. You make tax cuts pay for themselves. What does it mean? One of the most misunderstood concepts in our government. How does a tax cut pay for itself? By loosening up all of the, all of the earning and spending because people have more money? No. They pay for themselves by having offset cuts in spending. That's how you pay for the tax cut. You're going to get X% less revenue, so you have to cut X% of spending, like you would in your household budget. We just don't do it in government because they're not playing with their own money. And we're fine living on debt. No company could exist with our debt to equity ratio that we have. No household ever could. This is a completely artificial one-of-one situation with the U.S. government because we are too big to fail for a lot of other countries, including even China that holds a lot of our paper. So Democrats tend to have better economies, and the big part of that, it's multifactorial, of course, but a big factor is government spending. Now, so economically, the idea that it's going to tank if she's president, unlikely, okay? What will be her priorities? Stock market, she says she's going to go after corporations and make them pay their fair share. That is absolutely going to have a negative effect on the stock market. Now, can she get it done? I say no. That takes us to Congress. We'll get there in a second. Much of what she wants to do, she cannot do herself. The biggest boogeyman issue for her, she's got two boogeyman issues when she comes in. One is immigration. And I hope she learns from Biden and sees that what you can do by executive action, you should do immediately. Okay? And what you can do from legislation, you can try to make happen and talk to the American people a lot more than she's doing now about how Congress won't do this and Congress won't do that and Congress won't help the dreamers and Congress won't pass the bill so that I can put more staff and more this and more that. Fine. But you're not going to get much done unless you do it through executive action, which is what Trump did and what Biden should have done and did later on, which is what stopped a lot of the flow, which has certainly slowed down. And the big reason for it is that the jobs have slowed down or had for a certain period for that segment of the workforce, and Biden put restrictions in place. So on immigration, she can't do that much herself. So that means not much is going to get done. With corporations, the more she chases them as part of her tax stuff, and remember, she's going to have to pass that. And I'll get to Congress as a big part of that. So a lot of what she'll be able to do herself is how she moves money around within agencies that reflect her priorities and what she talks about. Now, if she has Congress as a majority and she has the presidency, this will change, but I'll talk about that when I get to Congress. If she doesn't have Congress, she's going to be very, very limited in what she can do. Now, oil and gas. She's going to go all EV, right? Of course not. Right now, the United States is pumping and refining more petroleum than it ever has before. No Trump. Wrong. Okay? Why? Because it's not about Trump. It's not about Biden. It's not about public lands. It's about the marketplace. It is a global market. And these consortiums and corporations are very reactive to the world market. And coming out of the pandemic, as demand has increased, so has their willingness to loose supply. L-O-O-S-E, not L-O-S-E. Okay, it's not lose supply. It's loose, as in loosen, as in allow for more to be supplied. That's what's driving the new drilling. Okay? Yeah, but Trump would do even more. Again, you cannot drill, baby, drill your way out of a world market. You can influence it to a degree, but not that big a degree. This is a lie that you are being told. Now, Harris, though, can absolutely slow it down. I have gotten no indication that that's what she'll do. They have learned lessons about EVs. We weren't ready. Our grid is not ready. Nobody wants to put the money, even with that great infrastructure bill that we have, that you're seeing signs wherever you live, including red states, because you got 2 out of 3 of all projects of green economics from the infrastructure bill. What? Yes. Again, they hated the green bill. They hated the infrastructure bill, right? They passed it, though, right? On a party line vote. 2 out of every 3 green economy projects, red states. They bullshit you. Pay attention to it. What will she do? She will create more incentives for green businesses. She will not force EVs. She will not force us out of fossil fuels. She will not do it. She may talk about it. She won't do it because the economic reverberations, where we are in terms of our sustainability of the infrastructure, it ain't ready. And it is not a big winner for Democrats. Being green is more talk than walk right now. And that seems to be enough for them. And it is a low priority in voter preferences. Okay? So, foreign, this is going to be a problem for Harris. And guess what? It is more likely that American boots will be on the ground in dangerous places with a Democrat than if it's Trump. Because Trump does not give a shit about America's role in extending peace and helping the downtrodden around the world. That is not his priority. I remember him saying about the Iraq war, we didn't even get the oil. We didn't even get the oil. He thinks about things in a very selfish way, spreading democracy, protecting against any type of condemnation of a people or any kind of oppression. He doesn't give a shit. The chance that there are U.S. boots on the ground goes up with a Democratic president in this current set of circumstances. Something to watch for. The administration. I believe that Harris is going to pick Republicans and put them on her staff in a way that we haven't seen before. Now, will they be rhinos? Yeah, as far as Trump and his people are concerned. But remember this. The day that Harris wins, Trumpism dies. And the Republican Party will stick with its hostilities towards Harris. And that's a question that I have when we get to the Congress part of the analysis. But Trumpism will die because that party is desperate to reform itself along more traditional conservative lines and less about having the worst character possible and pro-chaos. Disruption, yes, but disruption from inside, not burn it all down. So Rhino won't mean the same thing that it does now, and she will pick more people, I think, of political diversity and put them in than we've seen, okay? Culture wars, identity wars, LGBTQ plus, trans specific, all of that will die down. Why? Because it's a boogeyman of the right more than it is a mainstay of the left. Again, it is a boogeyman of the right more than it is a mainstay of the left. The only one of these culture issues you'll hear Harris talk about a lot will be reproductive rights. And I think rightly so. So I don't think it's going to be, well, all my kids are going to have to learn that they should chop off their penis. No, that's not what she's going to be about. That's not what the left is really about. It's reaction formation to a boogeyman set up by the right. She is not going to make that her big thing to talk about. I know you're being scared by that, but that's the point, is to scare you. Is to scare you. It is more hype than it will be a function of our collective history. Remember I said that. Support for the Chris Cuomo Project comes from Readywise. All right, let's paint a picture. You're huddled with your family in your living room. Outside, wind is howling. Ooh, like a pack of owls. The sky is darker than your favorite noir film. Your phone's dead. Why? Hurricane. No electricity. Last can of beans you had was snatched by the neighbor's cat. God damn that cat. Now you're looking at your kids. They're looking at you. Well, I want to eat. I'm starving. Uh-oh. What am I going to feed my family in this emergency? I wish I had prepared. Readywise swooping in like a superhero in a cape made of freeze-dried lasagna. Nom nom. Readywise has delicious, hearty meals that last up to 25 years. It's making sure that you are doing what you can to protect yourself in time of need and emergency. A stash of tasty food. Imagine if you're in North Carolina or Georgia right now after the latest storm, how much this could make a difference when you got to go days or longer after a natural disaster. Head over to Readywise.com, stock up, use the promo code Cuomo20, and you get 20% off. That's Readywise.com. Use my promo code Cuomo20. All right? Look, bad times come. What you can do is you can prepare. Readywise helps with that. Get after it. Support for the Chris Cuomo Project comes from Ground News. Now listen, I'm a news guy. Why am I pitching a different source? Because I don't play that game. That's why. If something can help you, I want you to know about it. And Ground News is very helpful. Why? Because Ground News helps you curate information that you can trust. It's a website and app that helps you make sense of the news by gathering related articles from around the world in one place so you can compare coverage. It does the homework for you. Context about the source. Does it have a political bent? Is it reliable? Who owns them? Ground News gives you that information. What details do people emphasize and why? Ground News lets you compare how outlets from the left, right, and just who's known to be reasonable, how they're all covering and each is covering the same story. Go to groundnews.com/Chris to get 40% off the Ground News Vantage plan, which will unlock access to all of their features. I think it's a genuinely cool, essential tool in today's world. They're doing important work, and I hope you'll check them out. Groundnews.com, Ground is ground/Chris. And then you hook me up and I hook you up. Next, Congress. It does not look at this point in time that Harris is going to have a meaningful majority and control of Congress. If that is the case, that she is dealing with an upside down Congress from her party's perspective, she's going to get nothing done. They will lock her out. Now, how does this change? With what we just saw from Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson just allowed for a spending bill to go through instead of forcing what Trump wanted, which was them to vote on this bullshit election save act. Why? Because he knows it's bad for the elections that are going on right now for Republicans to show that you shut down Congress. If that mentality picks up momentum, which I believe it will when Trump is no longer relevant, then I know he could be relevant. He could run again. I don't think it'll happen. But then there may be some things that get done in Congress as a function of mutual benefit. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see how their disposition changes. If she has a Democratic Congress, what will be the first thing she does? Her first move will be a tax move. Why? Most political bang for the buck. Then what? Then she's going to finish the ACA, which has a lot of operative legislation it still needs that they've never passed. And it needs refinements and fixes. The Republicans wouldn't fix it because they said they wanted to destroy it. They never had the votes to destroy it. It wound up being better than they thought it would be, so they went quiet on it. But it still needs fixes. But that's not a big enough political win for Harris. It's going to be taxes. Then it's going to be fixing the ACA. Wait a minute. What about the border? There will never be an accommodation bill there. They want what does the left want? They want the dreamers. They want more people in. They want to be nice to the ones who are already here and find a way to on-ramp them to citizenship. Two of those three things are going to be complete kryptonite for the right. So you are not going to get a comprehensive immigration bill. Not with things the way they stand now. Could it happen? Yeah, but it's been promised since Reagan, and we never got it. I think that this is an issue that works better as a problem than it does as a solution for either party. I believe it works better as a problem than it does as a set of solutions for either party. I believe it's more true for the Republicans than it is for the Democrats. If they go back to being Republicans instead of just being Trumpers, we'll see. If that happens, things could change. Now, the big question with Congress is how will they meet Harris as a condition Meaning what? Are they going to stick with this prosecute and investigate your opponent to death mode? I am hopeful, but also from a pragmatic perspective, I think lawfare ends. And I don't think they do that because I think it's a bad look for them. And I think it hurts them going into the midterms, where ordinarily you pick up seats as the out party. I think they could spoil that if they continue this bullshit of just going after the other side with every kind of hearing that you can and every kind of subpoena power that you have. But that is going to be the big issue. Now, back to the economy before I move on to the third factor, which is us. When she does the tax cuts for the working class, what will she cut in spending? The problem that Democrats do is they often spend and don't pay for tax cuts the same way. That's going to be the challenge for her in terms of what her economic impact is. You're going to have to control spending. Trump did not do it. He added to the deficit in a way that we have not seen in a long time. He ballooned it, in part because of how much revenue he lost from that tax cut, which did not wind up doing the trickle down that they all wish it would, and it never does. Rewarding the top with more money does not mean that the working class gets a boost, okay? It has never meant that. Could it mean that? Theoretically, yes, but we have not seen it in practice. And when you don't do offsetting cuts, which usually conservatives do, but Trump isn't a real conservative when it comes to that, you get what you have, which is a balloon deficit. Now, us, I believe there's going to be less chaos. I think that there'll be a source of pride in having the first female president and having a female who is a person of color, I think adds to the cachet. Will there be reaction formation? Maybe. But as a people, there will be relief from the exhaustion of this campaign dynamic and all the hostility. We will be craving boring. We will be craving quiet. Okay? And a lot of that is going to be about how the right reacts to her and what mode they go into. But again, I believe that party changes fundamentally when Trump is no longer forcing himself upon it. And that's it. Those are the big tickets about Harris getting in. I'll tell you what should have been the headline, but I'll end with it. The idea that Harris is going to be a communist, that Harris is going to instill socialism and communism is bullshit. This has always been said about Democrats. It was said about Clinton. It was said about Gore if he got in. It was said about Obama. And now it's being said again. But socialism isn't good enough anymore. You got to go full commie. I'll just tell you this one thing. Two things. One thing that's interesting to me about the fear of communism really doesn't have to do about economics and capitalism. You know, it has to do with Christianity and religion, right? That's the real boogeyman. The real thing that made Russia a boogeyman wasn't that they wanted everybody to control the assets of production. It's that they took God out of society. That's what pissed off America about them. Truly, truly. Now, play with this irony for a second. The same people who say, fear Harris, she's a commie, protect Putin and Russia in their war with Ukraine. Trump wouldn't even say that Ukraine should win that war. Think about that. He wants you to fear Harris as a commie, but he is protecting the commies who just invaded a sovereign country. Think about that. So what do they really care about? Advantage. Harris isn't a commie, okay? Does she want to spend more money on programs? Okay, welcome to Democrats. Doesn't make you a socialist or a communist. She's not a boogeyman, okay? Any more than if Trump wins, as I told you, that Project 2025 is going to tear down our institutions. These are boogeymen to scare you enough so that you're not listening to the rest of what they say, so they don't have to deliver on their promises and they don't have to argue and put details into plans and actually convince you to vote for them for positive reasons as opposed to scaring you into voting for them for negative reasons. So if Harris comes in, capitalism isn't gone. Everybody doesn't get their penis chopped off. This does not become a transgender society where we can't procreate anymore. This is all bullshit boogeymen. And you know what? I'm glad I saved it for last because it's noise and nonsense. So that is my take on the three categories that you look at for Kamala Harris. What does she mean individually? What can she do individually? How does that interplay and play with what happens with Congress? And what does it mean to us as a society. A lot of this is unknown. Most of it should be, because you got to see what happens when she's in there and how she reacts to it. You know, that's why they call the first 100 days the honeymoon, because really that's all you get is about 2-3 months, assuming you don't fall right into crisis, which may happen here. Between what's happening in the Middle East and what's happening in Ukraine, I didn't even mention them in my analysis because you guys have just stopped caring about it. But she could have to face things that are not of her own making as soon as she gets in. And if not, she gets 2-3 months to figure out what she wants first, and it's almost certainly going to be a tax cut, because that's her best chance of getting something through Congress, and that's her best chance of getting a win early on. Thank you for listening to me here on the Chris Cuomo Project. What do you think happens if Kamala Harris wins? What do you think doesn't happen? Subscribe, follow, check me out on News Nation every 8p and 11p every weekday night. My Substack, if you want the podcast ad-free, it's only $5 a month, and you get all the long COVID talk from my doctor, Dr. Robin Rose, and you get my walk-in talks. It's all there, only $5 a month, and we're using the money to help people who need treatment for long COVID but can't afford it. That's what we're going to use part of the money for. So, what do you say? Let's get after it.